Good day, everyone. Welcome to the PFLE Primer Lecture Review. So this sample video that should give you a glimpse of how we prepare future takers of the PFLE. So for this brief lecture video, I will be focusing on the basics of utilization of non-timber forest products, which is under the component Forest Utilization Engineering. But before we delve right into the topic, let me briefly introduce myself. I am Forester Justin. I am a graduate of BS Forestry in the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. My experience spans around partnership and coordination in conservation and social impact organizations. So I am one of the first lecturers of URC PFLE review program, and I am here to give you a brief review about the NTFPs. So what are NTFPs? When we talk about it, it basically means non-timber forest products. So think of anything that we get from the forest and even in the agroforestry systems that is not considered as timber, that is part of an NTFP. This could be things that people use for food or even medicine, crafts, construction, even resins and oil. So for forest goods other than timber, that is considered as an NTFP. So for this video, I will be briefly giving you a review of some of the most common NTFPs here in the Philippines, which are bamboo, rattan, and resin. So first one, we have bamboos. Bamboos are part of the Poaceae family. So these are the family of grasses that are characterized as a fast-growing species. And bamboos grow in different ways depending on its rhizome type. So we have two types, which is the pachymorph and the leptomorph. So for pachymorph, these are bamboos that grow in clumps or in tight clusters. These are typically easier to manage and even harvest. Meanwhile, for leptomorph or the running type of bamboo, they grow spreadly or they grow wide in wide spaces, and typically they can be invasive if they are not controlled properly. So for the ideal harvest time of these bamboo are typically from 3 to 5 years, wherein they are still strong enough and flexible enough to be harvested. So the proper timing or the timing matters when it comes to harvesting bamboos because the ideal time for them to be harvested is during the dry months, which reduces the risk of pest and decay. Now there are different bamboo species that serves different uses. So the two most common are 𝗘𝗠𝗡𝗕𝗡 and 𝗪𝗏. So I've also included here their scientific names because in the licensure examination, typically the options given there are the scientific names and not really the common names. So it's very important to familiarize ourselves in the common names, even up to the genus and genus name of these species, so that it will help you find the correct answer. So going back, so these two bamboo species, 𝗘𝗠𝗡𝗕𝗡, this is basically a strong species of bamboo that is typically used for construction or scaffolding. And meanwhile, the 𝗪𝗏 is a more flexible one because it has a thin-walled culm. So this is ideal for weaving and making fences in rural or residential homes. Okay. Now we move to the next NTFPs, which is rattan. Rattan came from the Malayan term rotan, which refers to climbing palms. So in the Philippines, there are 4 common genera that can be found here. And the one that has the highest genera number is the calamus, and there are a total of 45 species. here in the Philippines. So for rattan, there are two climbing organs that we need to remember. So first one is cirrus and the second one is flagellum. What are the key difference of these climbing organs of rattan? So basically these two, the similarities of it is that they are both used for climbing, but the difference is that the cirrus is a leaf extension, so it is attached at the tip of the leaf of rattan, and meanwhile the flagellum, it's actually attached on the stem of the rattan. So that's how we differentiate the two organs. Okay. Now, the third and last common NTFP that I'll be discussing for this video are resins. So resin is basically forest products that people often don't see in daily life, but they have a very critical or a critical role in many industries. So I've included here two most common sources of resin, which is 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗧 and PFLE, and including here are their scientific names. So for the name for the commercial resin of these species, for 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗧, it's called 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗀h adhesive, paints, and even pharmaceuticals. So for 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪�ึSo locals have to carefully tap it so that to ensure that the tree will still continue to grow. For PFLE, the name of its commercial resin are Manila Elemi. So this is typically used for perfumes and cosmetics. So all of these products or NTFPs are typically products that highlight the economic and ecological value of preserving forest. So not just for wood, but also for materials that are very useful to us in our day-to-day life. So that is the end of the brief review on the utilization of NTFPs. Now to test what you grasp from it, I have prepared two questions. For each question, it can be answered on your own and will be timed for only 10 seconds. But usually in our practice in URC, we do coaching wherein we give longer time for students to think of their answer. And once the timer is up, I will reveal the answer and explain why that is the correct answer. So if you're ready, let's begin. So the first question, allow me to read it. In the mountain barangay of Palawan, elders demonstrate resin tapping from a tall conifer used to produce 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 for varnish and incense. A student mistakenly identified the tree as lawan, while another thought it was rattan. Which species is the actual resin source? So time is up. So the correct answer is letter D. So the true source is actually 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪�ึ So what are the clues to determine that answer? So in the question itself, it says here that it is a resin tap. There is a process of resin tapping. It's a tall conifer, and it's a source of 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪. So in that, you will already know that it is, or it's referring to the 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪, right? And it's not in the choices. If you look closely to it, the choices here says for letter A, this is actually the scientific name of white lawan. Letter B is a species of rattan. And letter C is a species of bamboo. So you will see here how important it is to be familiarized with the scientific names of the common species that can be found and utilized here in the Philippines, so that you will be able to derive the more logical or arrive to the correct answer. Okay, now let's proceed to the second and final question. Which upland bamboo is traditionally used for light basket, fish traps, and weaving because of its thin-walled columns? So time is up. So the correct answer is letter B, which is the common name of it is buho. Why is that the answer? Is because it has a thin-walled culm ideal for weaving. So there are several clues already included in the question, such as it's a bamboo, it should be ideal for weaving, and the third one is it has a thin-walled culm anatomy. So if you'll notice here in the other options, letter A is actually a species of bamboo, but this is giant bamboo. So this one is ideal for furnitures. And the third one, letter C, 𝗪𝗦𝗧. This is actually the scientific name for 𝗘𝗠𝗔𝗗𝗓𝗔𝗥, which is more for construction and scaffolding. And the third, or the letter D, is a species of rattan. So which is not a species of bamboo, obviously. So this is the end of our brief lecture video. I hope this sparks your interest to include Upstep Review Center as part of your preparation for the upcoming Foresters Licensure Examination. For more questions about the program, feel free to reach out to the communication platforms indicated below. Thank you and good luck, future foresters.